We are amazing because our passion is limitless and our drive is intense. Therefore, you will not deny our grind. You are now listening to the Faith, Grind, and Inspire podcast.
Welcome back to another great episode of Faith, Grind, Inspire podcast. I am your host, Gene Alert, and today we have a very special guest, one of my dear friends, Haitian brother.
Yes, sir.
What's going on, Gary?
What's going on, man? What's going on?
Good, man.
Very excited to be here. Very excited to be here.
My man, Gary Coichy. Coichy.
Yeah, almost there, yep.
Almost there.
Yeah.
For the years that I've known you, man, I've always messed up your name.
It's one of those names, man. It's actually, I've reached the point where I don't take it personal. And I've never been that guy to take it personal. I do understand I have a hard last name, especially when you look at how it's spelled, C-O-I. So it's easy for someone to say Koi, Kwa. I've heard Ku. It's everything, man. So it's all good, brother. All good.
And, you know, my last name, I tell them it's Alert, E silent. They be like, Alerty. So I've been getting that for years, man.
Right.
So thanks for joining me, man, today. You know, this podcast is all about the entrepreneurship mindset, the journey, the process, how we get here.
Right.
How do we just make it happen?
Right.
You know? And so we've known each other for over 13 years.
Right. Scorpios.
The Scorpios. We got friends together.
Right.
Yeah, the 40-40. Oh,
right,
wow,
yeah. Years, man. Years. And this is when the 40-40 was the 40-40.
Yeah.
So it was a whole different level. So yeah, we've been at it for some years.
You know, now we, men, man.
Right.
So, and I feel like it's important that people understand the process of entrepreneurship because everyone's making it look like it's super easy.
Right.
And it's not.
Right.
You know, so I wanted to talk about what you're working on now, but, really where you came from, right? So,
Absolutely.
Tell the people.
Absolutely. Well, first of all, man, thank you for having me. Like you said, we've known each other for some years. And the beautiful thing about all of this and about us even having this conversation right now is that we've seen each other through our journeys, right? Like I said, I knew you had your office back in Williamsburg, but now you're in Bed-Stuy.
Yeah.
So I've seen your journey in terms of you were doing a lot more events and a lot of athlete-centric events before.
Yes.
And then now you're more in the back end. And then now you have this show. And then for me, back then I was very much a corporate guy. I had my 9 to 5, in different advertising agencies on the client side. So anyway, I say all of this to say that, I'm very excited to be here. Clearly, we've both been growing. It's a beautiful thing to always see someone that, people that you personally know growing and doing the things that they like. So I was definitely very proud of you, brother.
I'm proud of you too,
yeah, man. And I know you're a family man now. You have the wife, you have the kids.
We're celebrating 10 years.
Which is amazing. So you see growth. And I'm a big believer and a big advocate for growth. But yeah, man, my story is that grew up in Haiti, born and raised, until I was about 15.
15 years old.
15 years old. Okay. I moved to the States January 20th, 1997. And I spoke zero English. So I was in ESL. And at times it was so frustrating. I would go, and I'm a very faith-driven guy. And I'll go to sleep, even at 15, 16, I would say, hey, God, I just want an angel to come at night so I can learn how to speak English because I don't understand what these kids are saying, So basically I had to learn English through ESL. And I would say about 18, that's when I really felt comfortable, but my accent was still very heavy.
1 year.
A year and a half, because 15, 15, 16, 17, yeah, like about 2 years.
Oh, okay.
About 2 years, that's what it really took me to sort of really master the language. You feel like I can actually have a real conversation.
17, you came at 15.
15 going on 16.
Oh, got it.
Yeah. So I was 15 going on 16. So by the time I turned 18, basically when I'm getting out of high school, that's when I really felt comfortable really speaking the language.
Okay.
But all throughout high school, I still had jobs. I mean, there's some people that see me now, they're like, yeah, I remember you, Gary, when you were at McDonald's, you couldn't even take my order, because I was struggling because I didn't really know the language. Post high school, I went into college at Berkeley in White Plains. While at Berkeley, they also had a program because I was studying international business where you get an opportunity to study abroad. And then while there, I went to study in London, Regent's College in London. And I mean, when I say that was life changing, that was life changing. When you take yourself, a kid from a third world country, they come to the States, which is life-changing, which is a whole different ball game. And then now you take them out of that environment, which they're just now getting accustomed to. And then now you throw them in a whole different environment in London.
Yeah.
Right. But while there, I'm being exposed to people from India, to people from Africa, to people from, New Zealand, Sweden. It's all types of people because in Europe and just how it is, everyone is in close proximity. And I came back and my eyes was open to the world. I was not the same kid that came from Haiti because now my views were much more global. And that also helped me in even further, even still now too, just the fact that I studied in London, I was exposed to so much at such a young age, and I was there for a total of 6 months. That just opened my eyes to a whole lot. But anywho, post college, I went on to
wait.
Yeah.
Before you get to that, I want to stop right there just for a second, right? So, are you the only boy or?
Oh no, great question. I'm my dad's second child and my mom's first.
Okay.
So my dad had a daughter prior to marrying my mom.
Okay.
And then my mom, then they had me, and then I have a younger brother who was actually 28, about to be 29. He's very much involved in the business that I'm currently in right now. And then I also have my dad also had another kid. So my dad has 4 kids and my mom has 2 kids.
Got it.
Now, so yeah.
Question. So when you came to America, where did you come? Brooklyn, Queens, Long Island?
That's actually a really good question because that played such a huge part in my growth. I grew up I went to Rockland County, which is in Nyack. So
I wasn't expecting that one.
So most Haitians come to the States and they go, hey, of course. No, it's Brooklyn or Queens, and then as they start doing better for themselves, they go out to Long Island.
Yep. Exactly.
But I grew up in Rockland County, and the great thing about Rockland County is that especially in Nyack, to my left was a Mexican family, across the street was a Haitian family. Diagonally across the street was an Irish family. To my right was a white family. So that really, from the start, I had so much versatility just because of that neighborhood of where I grew up in. And then that also helped me out a lot too, simply because everyone had something going on. So everyone was always working because it was all working class families. So that helped me a lot. Even now, I'm such a big advocate for versatility. There's no way I want to be someone that's known for being one-dimensional.
Exactly.
So I don't like that. Even when I was a corporate guy, I still always had that little extra step to my swagger just because I don't want to be known as a corporate guy. And at the same time, I don't want to be known as a street guy because I'm not a street guy. However, I positioned myself to be able to have a conversation with the street guy, to say, yo, what up, my man? What's going on? What's the word? What we getting into? What up, dun dun? To know what the slangs are. But at the same time, immediately run into Jim and say, hey, Jim, pleasure to meet you. How you been? How's the wife and kids? How's business going? It's not being fake.
What they call it now, code switching.
Code switching, but it's not. But for me, it's not even about code. So that has to be taught. For me, that's part of my DNA because that's what Nyack instilled in me. Is just simply because it has those different sort of different families or whatnot or what have you. But yeah, so yeah.
Now we can go back
for sure.
Post college,
then I went immediately into corporate America.
Okay.
Immediately into corporate America. So I was always a working guy. In high school I worked at McDonald's. I did Home Depot. In college, I was a manager at the Sharper Image. Yeah. Oh yeah, so I was always involved. I was always always in the mix from making sure I was always employed. So then, but I immediately knew I didn't want to be a blue collar guy. I'm not the type of guy to working at Home Depot wasn't a bad gig because I think the pay back then was $18 an hour, so it wasn't the worst. However, for me, I'm not a lumber guy. So I've always knew that I wanted to be in an office. I always knew I wanted to have a corner office. I wanted to be that guy that comes in, what deals are we closing today? Who are we talking to? Are we talking to London? Are we talking to Japan? What's happening today? I was always I've always wanted to be that guy, and it's twofold. One of them is extremely funny. People always think I'm joking when I say this, but representation matters is that Eddie Murphy in Boomerang was an inspiration. He'll walk into that office, I think it was Chris Rock with the mailman, would be like, what's up, man? What are we doing today, man? And he'll still be like, all right, what's up, man? What do you want from me today? And he's walking to his office. By the time he get in front of his office, his secretary's like, yeah, you have 3 messages, and he'd say, tell them I'm busy today. And he walks in his office and he'll spin his chair. He's not doing anything, but he's just happy to be in his office. I'm like, I want to be that guy. He's cool. He's cool. And then when you think about it, like how he was a ladies' man, out of all his friends, they always looked up to him as like the cool guy. I'm like, I want to be that guy. So he had some female issues that I don't experience, that I'm not exposed to. But from the work perspective, I was like, I want to be that guy. Yeah. And then the second guy that inspired me was a guy named Dennis. And my high school in Nyack, they actually had a summer program where, based on your interests, they'll send you to different programs, to different, they'll find you a job, a summer job. And my summer job, let's say, what are you interested in? So, of course, because of Boomerang, I said, I want to work in an office. And they put me in this office. It's called HACSO, Haitian American Cultural Social Organization. This is back in 1997, and I still remember it. And the guy that ran the office was called Dennis. Dennis had to be about 48, 49. I had to be in the office at 8 to clean, make sure the phones are working, make sure the doors are open. It was an office that actually catered to the Haitian community. If you didn't know how to fill your citizenship papers, or if you wanted to send money to, like, that sort of helped you out, right? But Dennis ran the office. Dennis will come in every day like clockwork at 9:15. Pull up to his parking spot, goes in his back seat, takes off his suit, puts his suit outside, and then walks into the office like he's the coolest guy on earth. I'm like, and he goes into his corner office. So Dennis to me was Boomerang, was Eddie Murphy in real life. You know what I'm saying? So I'm like, I want to be that guy. I want to work in a corporate office. I want to have my team be there an hour before, make sure things are running smoothly, and I just show up and I just get shit done. So apologize, I don't know if we curse on the show or not.
Podcast.
But yeah, man. So that's anyway. So post college, I immediately went to corporate America because I was inspired by the two folks. So I started working on the agency side, where I worked as really launching marketing campaigns, really learning about marketing campaigns, how you do different marketing campaigns. I was on the digital side.
Okay.
And I was just immediately said, marketing is my thing.
Yeah.
Like, it's just my thing. And I've always had a mind for it. I've always had a always wanted to say.
You're just curious about it.
100%. Like, how do you get someone to be interested in your products? How do you get somebody to buy your products? How do you position yourself to be the company that everybody looks up to? How did Coke become Coke?
Yeah.
Like, you think of soda, you need a Coke. You might want a brisk. You might want a ginger ale. He said, no, let me get a soda. Let me get a Coke. Just simply because. Exactly. As soon as you see the M, you know it's McDonald's. Yeah. It's not McDowell's. It's not
a Xerox, and it's not really a Xerox. It's
precisely. So how do you get to that point? So I'm always curious about marketing, and I think marketing is life. I don't care what anybody says. Yeah. If you can have the best product in the world. If you don't have a good marketing strategy, I think you're doomed. And I think. So that said, I've always wanted to be the guy that was in marketing. So every single job I've had over the past 14, 15 years, I've always been marketing centric in some capacity, whether it's fully integrated with online and offline, or that's fully 100% digital. I've always been in different marketing roles.
Yeah. So thank you for that, man. It's interesting that you hit those points because you answered a few questions that I don't have to ask you. So we can get right to it, right? So what made you get into entrepreneurship?
All right. So now we got to go back to Haiti.
Okay.
So both my parents had factory jobs, right? My mom worked during the day from 6 a.m. till about 3-ish in the afternoon. And my dad would work overnight from 6-ish till 6 o'clock in the morning. So when one parent is coming home, the other one is leaving. Despite both parents having regular full-time jobs, they're actually on 2 stores. And those stores were like 2 deli stores where you can actually get your milk, your cereal. Two, and in terms of state talk, it's like 2 bodegas basically.
Okay.
And the fact that because they feel, although they had 2 full-time jobs, they never knew whether or not they were going to get fired or lose their job. So they always wanted to have supplemental income to ensure that the family was always taken care of.
Yeah.
So they instilled that in me at an early age. And my mom also back to school time, she was the person you come to in the neighborhood to get your uniforms. Because in Haiti, you have to wear uniforms. So everyone would come. So that was also for her an additional source of income. So both my parents were always entrepreneurs. So I've always seen how they operate, and they did in fact lose their jobs. And the stores and those side businesses were actually, in fact, what supported us as a family.
Interesting.
So therefore, for me, I was always like, yeah, I want a full-time job. I want to have the great salary, and I want to have a 401k, the whole nine. However, for the most part, I want to make sure that I do have, secondary income that I can also I can rely on should my 9 to 5s not work out. So all throughout the years being in corporate, I've always had a side hustle.
You always had a side hustle.
There's always been a side hustle.
Yeah.
I mean, it was so bad to a point where people would call me GC.
Yeah.
In the evening, and then someone that knows me from way back, or someone that we've gotten a step deeper, will come around and say, "Hey, Gary, what's up?" And the person will be like, "Who's Gary?"
Who's Gary?
And then I'm like, because I branded myself one way for a specific crowd, because I wanted to sort of really position myself as the guy that can get you into any nightclub that you want, any tables that you want in New York City, anywhere. We can't, your average Joe doesn't have access to. I can be the guy that sort of facilitate that for you. So therefore, I don't want you to see me as Gary Coichy that has a 9 to 5. I want you to see me as a cool guy, GC. So I position myself in that regard for that crowd. And then I'll go home at 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, and I'm waking up the next day, suit and tie, fresh loafers on, and I'm going to the corporate office to work with Jim, Brian, Chris, and all of those guys, just because that I'm living in two different worlds. So
you balanced it right. Now, let's stop right there.
Right.
For those people out there that are trying to do both. Right. How did you balance those two worlds, and how did you not crash in either one of them?
Right.
And did one of them get affected?
Oh no, 100%. I did crash. Oh no, 100%. No, 100%. Especially when you're starting out. I mean, 24, 25. You're trying to figure out what your sweet spot is. If you're trying to find that sweet spot, it's going to come with trial and errors. I have corporate meetings at 9 o'clock in the morning, but yet I just got home at 4. I got to drive all the way out to Rockland County. So by the time I get there, it's 4:45. And I got to wake up basically at 5:45 to get on the 6:20 bus. So that's going to take an hour and a half to be in my office by 8:30. I'm not Superman.
Yeah.
So therefore, you get to work. Yes, you're present, but are you productive?
No.
So I mean, at some point, productivity was in fact impacted, and there were some conversations that needed to be had. But then that's when you have to make a choice. Like at the end of the day, do you want to be long-term entrepreneur? Is that what you want to focus on for the moment, or do you feel like in this exact moment, your 9 to 5 is more valuable due to the fact that you have more bills, you're supporting your family? How do you go about it? So I think it's just a matter of making sure you're not taking too much on your plate, and then figuring out and prioritizing. But back then I didn't know how to prioritize. I love my 9 to 5 because it was, I think I was 22. At 22, I think my salary was about $48,000. So I love that salary because I still lived at home. So for me, that salary was comfortable, was my safety net. However, I also loved the nightlife because that's where I was cool. I was a different character. So I loved it. You're going to album release parties, red carpet events. Like who doesn't want that?
Football players.
Going out with football players. What up, Pope?
What's going on, Jeff, man?
So you're going out with football players, artists, and you're everywhere. And those people that your average Joe Schmo looks up to as like a super celebrity, you're right next to him at parties. So of course, in that exact moment, you're not thinking about, let me go home to go to sleep for work. You're like, no, let's make this a night. And then in New York City, the 2004, 2005, and 2008 and 9 era will never be repeated because that was such a key moment in terms of the entire lifestyle of what New York was all about. People would fly in from other places just to come to Greenhouse on Tuesdays just because it was such an epic party. So for me, it was just, I definitely crashed, but I always prioritized. So even though I'll fall off with my 9 to 5, I always found a way to bounce back.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what's your advice about, one question that just popped up in my mind as far as like those two, right? The side hustle and the 9 to 5. Do you think sometimes because the nightlife the meeting people at night and people, I call them in my book, I call them professional partiers, right?
Right.
So these are the guys who you give your card to, and I know you met a lot of them.
Right.
And because we ran in the same circles. So
Right.
you meet people, yo, I'm going to call you tomorrow. Yo, call me tomorrow. We're going to do lunch. You call the person tomorrow. And here's the thing. I'm full-time. So if I call you, if I tell you, hey, I'm going to call you tomorrow at 12, let's do lunch.
Right.
Right? But you have a 9 to 5.
Right.
But you didn't tell, you know what I'm saying? And then you tell me to call you.
Right.
And I call you.
And then here I am in a quarterly business meeting with my clients, and I can't talk parties right now.
Exactly.
I can't talk right.
And you can't talk business.
Right.
Because you're at work.
Right.
So now what happened is how did that work for you? Because a lot of times, not just that part, but just meeting people who can't do anything for you. You see what I'm saying? But give you the illusion that they can.
For sure.
Because the entertainment, the nightlife, that's why I think football players and athletes don't stand a chance in New York to win.
Right.
Because there's so many people pulling at them and giving them like this illusion.
Correct.
And so what happens is when you go back to reality,
right,
which is I guess the 9 to 5 world,
right?
That's real life.
Right, exactly.
So at night it's this facade. This
alcohol is involved. Yeah, it's just a whole different.
It's just like superstars, cameras,
lights, camera, action. Yeah, for sure.
Drinks.
Right.
And then you think you're on top of the world, and then next thing you know, the next day you're like, yo.
I think Jay has that line. I forgot the line in New York. I can't even think of the line. It's a new Welcome to New York song for Alicia Keys.
Oh yeah.
Like New York will burn you out, man. It will burn you out, which is why you have to, I think, for any person that's moving to New York or that's currently now 19, 20, that's coming out of college and gonna figure out their way, it's two things. It's discipline and priorities. Like you need to understand like what exactly are your priorities, what exactly you're trying to accomplish. I will never not tell someone to not go to an industry party where it's open bar, it's celebrity centric, it's fun. Absolutely, you have to enjoy those moments. 100%. I experience. Listen, man, I have stories for days because
Diddy's parties,
all types, right? But at the end of the day, it's what are your priorities? So what's the purpose of being at this event? Mm-hmm. So if this purpose is to be seen, so you can start creating, so you can start branding yourself as the person that has access to these exclusive events, that's fine. Show up for an hour or two. Take a picture on the red carpet, do an IG story, take a picture on the red carpet for your in-feed Instagram, add a couple tweets on Twitter, put a couple snaps on Snapchat, make sure you meet a couple people, relevant people, relevant or not, because you may not know, to your point, whether they're relevant or not, and then go back home, because if the next day you have to wake up for your job, make sure that happens. So for me, I'll always say it's discipline and priorities so that you don't get caught up on the hype, and then the hype is not going to pay your bills. No. So therefore, it's all about discipline and priorities.
It's true, man. Yeah, man. It's so crazy because let's go back to that the two, right? Because there's a lot of people out there now who are not for the parties, entertainment,
right.
Side hustles,
right? For sure, yeah. I wanted to stay away from the parties, but side hustles as a whole.
It's not a party thing. It's more of the side hustle and trying to balance both the 9 to 5 and the side hustle, right?
Right.
When do you think it's safe to have your side hustle become your full time?
Consistency. There has to be that level of consistency is exactly what basically your question is. When do you take that leap and then say, this is it? Like, I'm actually going to take this leap now. When for me is, and I really want to get into this story about how I basically launched my current company now and how well it's doing. But because you have this gut feeling that everything that you do, everything that you talk about will be about your side hustle. Let's say it's a new clothing line. Let's say even it's your podcast. Let's say it's a media company. Everything that you do, eat, breathe, and talk about will be that side hustle. Mm-hmm. To the point where somebody might says, "Oh, I didn't know you were a designer. Mm-hmm. I didn't know you were a singer. I didn't know you were, you wanted to be a nightclub man, whatever it is, right?
Whatever it is, yeah.
That part will be such, it'll start taking over your life. And then that's when you realize that you actually do, in fact, have something, and you need to allocate some real time behind it in order for it to succeed. Yeah. Because sometimes the juggle of having a 9 to 5 and then at the same time trying to have your side hustle, one of them is going to lose. And if you, in fact, do feel this is your passion, this is really what you want, and then you're being consistent by putting the work behind it, allocating the proper amount of time behind it, and at the same time, it's producing some level of income. So the income may not be the 70, the 100,000 you're currently earning at your full-time job, but if you start creeping up and then you're saying, well, I'm not making 100,000 yet. However, this is about 50,000. I'm still able to pay some of my bills. What sacrifices can I make now to really allocate some real time? So this thing that I have that's earning 45, 50,000 on a part-time basis, I can potentially make $150,000 to $200,000. So it's not a decision anyone else can make for you, because you're the one that has to live it. You're the person that has to live with yourself. So it's really just a matter of fully understanding that you have something that's real, that you believe in, and then now it's time for you to jump ahead and take that leap.
Yeah.
I
want to add to that, right? I want to talk about I think you have to sort of be obsessed with it. You know what I mean? Like, you have to get to the point where it starts off with as a side hustle, and then you become engulfed in it, man. Like,
right.
You see what I'm saying? Like, that passion is that's all you can see now. When you go to work, you just don't want to be there anymore.
For sure.
But you have to plan.
For sure.
You have to plan.
That's
you
a
have
fact.
to save money. You have to know. You have to start cutting while you in your 9 to 5. You have to start cutting back on expense, like things that if you were going out 6 times a week, start cutting back, start trimming back, start sacrificing.
That's it.
While you're at work,
right?
Start saving your money. Start building up the nest egg. Start building up the contacts.
Correct.
Building up your infrastructure, so when you do take the leap,
for sure,
it's not like okay. And make sure you're like he said, make sure you consistently making money.
100%.
Don't have a good month. You made 50,000 one month or 10,000 one month,
and then you think this is it.
This is happening.
Now let me quit my job. Quit
my job.
No, yeah, right.
With no plan,
sure.
No savings, no nothing.
Correct.
So
correct.
Be smart about it, guys.
100%.
So tell me, So now, what made you leave corporate to go into this space?
For sure. So,
and wait, before we get into that, what is this your first business that you had for your that you started?
This is not my first business, but this is the first business that I'm doing 100% full time.
Okay.
This is the first time that I 100% don't have a 9 to 5. I don't have to creep into a conference room to take business calls. I don't have to really allocate my weekends to it. This is like every day I wake up, I eat and breathe Pod Digital Media. So
let's talk about it.
Yeah.
Brother.
So Pod Digital Media was really Pod Digital Media is the first multicultural podcast ad agency.
Okay.
So therefore, podcast is a new medium, and Pod Digital Media is the first company to really focus on the multicultural podcasters and the multicultural segment within the podcast ecosystem. So therefore, we work with podcasters that has the African Americans and Hispanic audience. We work with those podcasters, and we bridge the gap between those podcasters, those creators, and the blue chip advertisers. So therefore, we leverage their shows, we leverage their inventory, and then now we say we have this inventory of the 18 to 45, 25 to 35, and then we take that to an advertiser that's looking to reach that audience segment. And we say, okay, now you can reach them because we have the inventory available for you. So that's exactly what we do. So I've worked on the agency side. I've talked about my work on the agency side a lot. So being on the agency side, you get the exposure of understanding the amount of dollars that's being spent on from a media perspective.
Yeah.
I mean, you hear about, people are spending millions for Super Bowl. They're spending X amount of money for the Grammys, for the Oscars. But being in a room and actually seeing those plans, it's really beaucoup money. And I love media. Again, I love marketing. And I love advertising. So therefore, I've always wanted to create a platform that can be leveraged in a real way for advertisers to reach an audience segment. However, I didn't want to do anything just to say for the fact I'm doing it and something that everybody else was doing. I really needed something very unique. And I started to do my due diligence. So influencer marketing about 2015,
Yeah.
I was very close to quitting corporate America and launching an influencer ad agency. Just the fact that I already have all the relationships on the media side because I work at those agencies. I know the athletes, just being in New York, and I know the different influencers, from models to actresses that come in and out of New York. And if you know one person, to get to the other person, it's not that hard because it's just a matter of an introduction. And I lived in New Jersey, where most of the athletes from the Nets, from the Knicks, from the Jets and Giants live. So I already have those relationships. So therefore, I felt I was the perfect person to create an influencer agency. And I slept on the idea for 2 months, and out of nowhere, all these different influencer ad agencies popped up. So everybody started doing influencer marketing. Influencer marketing now is a $10 billion industry. 4 years ago, it was merely 50 million, and now it's a $10 billion industry, right? Because everyone wants access to influencers, right? Everyone wants access to influencers because they feel like it's an organic way to have someone that's well known, now has over 300 followers on Instagram or on social media, to really talk about your product in a very authentic way. So I missed the boat on that. Simply because I was like, should I do it? Should I not?
Yeah.
Do I get investors? Do I not? Do I have enough money? Should I? All of that, sometimes when you second guessing yourself, time is passing by. So sometimes you just gotta say, okay, this is what I want to do. Let me go out and do it. So anywho, I was slightly upset, but I said I knew that another opportunity would come back around. So fast forward 3 years later, and podcast is emerging as a medium. Podcast, everyone is creating a podcast simply because the entry point for a podcast is not too costly, and it doesn't take much. I mean, right now, we're currently in a phenomenal studio. Congrats, man. This is a great studio. However, you do have, or sometimes all you need is to go to Best Buy or from your phone, and then you record, and then you're able to upload to Spotify and iTunes and SoundCloud, and boom, your podcast is up and running. So the entry point in podcast is the risks are very low, and it's not as costly. And then bigger talents that actually has TV shows, radio shows, are now started jumping into podcasts. For example, Oprah has a podcast show. Yeah. Right? Ellen has a podcast show. Who else? TD Jakes has a podcast show. So it's all those people. You're saying, why do you need a podcast? You're on national television. You have a large following on social and in real life. Why are you in a podcast? People are starting to understand that when there's a shift, opportunities exist. So the fact that now everything is happening on mobile, I'm able to access versus actually tuning into a radio show to be staying still in my car or home to tune in to Power 105 or tune into Hot 97. I can just have something on the go, on the train, or while I'm at work. Why not? That's what podcast has become, right? So now those talents are starting to shift into podcasts, which means now the fact that my favorite influencer, my pastor, the person that I look up to for different recipes, my favorite chef has a podcast show. Now I'm listening to more podcasts. So anywho, the fact that that's happening created an opportunity for advertisers to now want to place their ads into podcasts. So I'm watching the podcast medium grow. And I was working at my last agency, which is called Laundry Service, out in Dumbo. And I was one of the person that was part of the pitch for Carol's Daughter. Carol's Daughter is a hair care company, natural hair care company that caters to African Americans and Hispanic women with natural hair. So we won the business. And for me even though we had just won the business, I'm saying, what can we do? What else can we do to retain this client, to keep them, and so that they don't leave us to go anywhere else? And I started to think, and to be honest with you, I did not have this conversation with the principals at the company. It was just me really saying, if I can identify an opportunity, I can pitch it internally, get their buy-in, and then from there, I can take it to the client, and then the client will be happy, right? I started thinking, and I'm sitting there and I'm saying, podcasts. And Kel's daughter at the time was fighting a branding issue, simply the fact that they got acquired by L'Oreal. So some of their original customers were saying, well, they're sold out, the product's not the same anymore. And the campaign that we were creating on their behalf was to sort of say, hey, this is our 25th anniversary. We're still as authentic. We're still real. We're still Brooklyn. That's the campaign that we were creating for them. And I'm saying, and Lisa, who was the founder, was still very much involved in the entire process. And Lisa is such a great speaker, and she's loved such because she has such a great story. People always want to hear her story. So I said, if we can get Lisa on some of those podcasts and at the same time run some ads in those podcasts, it would be phenomenal. It would be amazing. I started calling all these different podcast network, and as I was calling them, I was saying, hey, do you have podcast that speaks to the multicultural segment? They were saying, nah, man, we have this great show, it has like 2 million listeners a week, but it's hosted by this guy. And I'm like, what's his name? And they'll tell me the host name, some popular guys. And I'm like, okay. And I'm like, that's a lot of reach. We can certainly scale it. And they're saying, what's the brand? I'm like, this is the brand. The brand is Kel's daughter. And they're like, oh, yeah, that's great. We have a lot of African-American females that listen to the show. Anyway, this is perfect. And I'm literally sitting there. I was so upset by the salesperson, different salespeople. I'm like, I don't know. I personally don't know. And if you do, let me know. And let me know. I don't know any African-American female or Hispanic female that will ever in life listen to a white guy telling them what to do with their hair.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. If you do, let me know. If anyone knows, like, please tell me. To have an African-American female and Hispanic female listen to a show and thinking that they'll find a white guy telling them to purchase a hair care product sounds believable. It just doesn't work. No. That doesn't work in any universe. That's not working. That's not going to work. So I was upset at first, and then the light bulb went off. I said, I just called all of the top podcast networks around the country, and no one has podcasters that caters to the multicultural segment. This happened in December of 2017. That idea was injected right then and there at laundry service, and that's when I knew I had something.
Wow.
And then I started doing my homework. And that's another thing I want to talk about too. You can have a great idea because you haven't heard of it, and then you ask your closest 5 people that have not heard of it, doesn't mean it doesn't exist. Yeah. So you have to do your due diligence before you start saying, I'm the only person, I just created something great. Like, how you have to do your due diligence and ensure that you are in fact accurate in your statement. So I started to do my homework. So not only I called all these different podcasts, now I started calling in the different agencies, my friends at the agencies. I said, hey, if you guys wanted to do a multicultural campaign, whom would you call to from a podcast perspective to place those ads? We don't know anybody. We don't know anybody. We don't know anybody. This doesn't exist.
Yeah.
And then it becomes like this idea, this snot that's in your stomach. So it's getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And you're like, wait a moment. This is real. Like, this doesn't exist. And I can be the person that actually go out and creates this.
Yeah.
Where you can aggregate all of those podcasters that has dope content that speaks to the African American and Hispanic audience, and then you can take that and pitch it to the advertisers. So what I did find is that there's loudspeaker networks. They'll work with Dorit, Angela Yee.
Yeah.
But they're a network.
Yeah.
I'm an agency, which means now I'm your agent. I can represent your show.
Yeah.
And you can still be. You can still remain independent while we go out and pitch your show.
So
and
you're not a network. You're an agency.
You're
that
an
reps
agency.
The show, so
Correct.
the show can be part of the.
Correct. You can be part of any network that you choose.
That's cool.
However, therefore now
your agency finds advertisers for the show.
Precisely. Cool. And you can still remain independent, still be part of the network you represent, as long as that we're sort of really minimalizing the overlapping, and it's not cross-pollinating. So we're not confusing the advertisers. We're in good shape. So I knew a lot of creators that had dope podcasts, but they didn't have no idea how to reach an advertiser. Who do they call at the agencies? Like, they don't even know.
They don't even know.
Like, if I want to work with Nike, do you go on Nike.com and you go on the Contact Us form page? Like, how do you go about that? The creators, it's not their fault. They just don't know.
They don't know.
They just know how to create dope content. So I'm saying, if I have access to those creators that are creating dope content, I speak their language, even though I'm not a creative, but I speak their language. I understand their mindset and their creative process. Yet, I also understand what the advertisers are looking for. They're looking to reach audience that with buying power that can actually purchase their products. Mm-hmm. I know what the agencies are looking for because they want to know, they're basically looking for opportunities to present to their clients. So if I understand both worlds, who is a better fit than myself to create this? And here we are.
That's cool, man.
Yeah.
So fast forward to like now, right? How do you find yourself, like, what challenges what challenges do you face now that because going from full-time ad agency to having basically your agency, but now just primarily focus on podcasts, are there any challenges or any like things that you're working on?
Oh, 100%, man. This is not easy at all.
It's like a learning curve, right?
Oh, no, yeah, it's not easy at all. I mean, we've been in business now since July 10th of 2018. It hasn't been a year yet. And I mean, there's a lot of challenges in terms of we still have to represent. We're competing against Westwood One. We're competing against iHeartMedia. We're competing against Spotify. We're competing against Pandora. We're competing against Gimlet, Midroll. Those are huge companies that actually has. They have the VC backing, they have all the funding in the world, they have the huge sales team, and here we are. We started as a company of a team of 2, and now we're a team of 13, nice. But yet we're still executing at the same level as those companies, nice. Right? So the challenges come is, can you execute at the scale that those companies, that those advertisers are looking for? And the answer is yes, we can. But at the same time, that comes with its set of challenges, like making sure that we're prioritizing and allocating our time effectively to ensuring that we are working with the right podcasters when we do get an opportunity to work with, when we have huge advertisers, to making sure that that's happening. The operations piece too is ensuring that, yes, Nike's not a client of ours. We're just speaking into existence. Mm-hmm. Nike gives me, just throwing a random number, $100,000 for a campaign, and they're looking to reach 18 to 24 or 21 to 35. Mm-hmm. Now we have to make sure that we're placing those ads and those podcasts that has that audience. So then that becomes a challenge. That just becomes the operations part to find all those podcasters. Some of them might already be part of a network of with the agents that we're working with. Sometimes we actually have to go out and get those new podcasters. So therefore, we have to vet them. It's time. So when you have a team that's very lean, you have to ensure that you're prioritizing. And ensuring that you're able to do that effectively. That makes sense. So that can be a challenge, but we're doing it. You know what I mean? Sometimes you can think about it. If you can, it scares you sometimes. You're like, man, are we going to be able to deliver on this? However, once you've instilled that confidence within yourself, and you're saying, oh, this is absolutely doable, you just go out and do it. Mm-hmm. And then once you're doing it, you're like, oh, it's like riding a bike. You're like, oh, I thought my dad was behind me. He's not oh, it's actually me riding my bike.
Yeah, I'm proud of you.
Thank you, man. Thank you, man.
One last question.
Sure.
Out of the 3 words, faith, grind, inspire, which word resonates more with you?
You can't do that, man. You can't do that. You can't do that. Because let me tell you why. And I can't answer that. I'm not going to choose one word. I'm sorry, I'm not.
You can choose all 3.
So the reason is I am very faith-based. Mm-hmm. So therefore, you can't do anything if you don't have faith and confidence in yourself that you can actually do it.
Yes.
So that's key.
Yes.
Because I absolutely believe in a higher power, and that you have to. You need that. Second, you can't pray and not do the work. So you need to grind. Mm-hmm. So you have to grind. Yeah. And as you're grinding and things are moving or working your way and in the right direction, like you need to inspire others so other people can actually take your spot or other people can actually get to that level. Yes. So all three matters to me, man. Yeah. So yeah, faith, grind, inspire. I represent all 3.
Thank you, man. So Gary, man, where can people find you? What's your Instagram? What's your website?
So we are Pod Digital Media. We are at Pod Media on Instagram, and our website is poddigitalmedia.com. So there, right on that website, that's how you can actually find our information and see the companies we're working with, the podcasters we work with, and our entire process. So yeah, that's it. poddigitalmedia.com. That's
what's up, man. Yo, thank you, Gary, for coming on. I feel like we need to have another one, a part 2, where we can really break down this process. Thank you so much. Thank you to our producers, Tim, Jamie, Brianna, to the OG Podcast Network for everything. And you can catch us every Wednesday. faithgrindinspired.com. Peace.
Out of here.